I remember the moment like it's carved into my bones, standing on my porch, coffee trembling in my hand, shotgun resting on the rail, and 4 HOA agents bolting down the trail like spooked deer. Their leader, Susan Carter, didn't run right away. She spat, her promise spat it like venom that she'd be back with real authority enough to erase me and my cabin. That was the morning my quiet life in the forest shattered, and I realized they weren't just after me, they were after everything. My name's John Miller, and for most of my life I thought I was living in peace. Willow Creek was supposed to be a place where neighbors nodded on the trail where the HOA handled trash pickup and mowing the communal lawns. My cabin wasn't even part of their development. It stood on the edge of the forest, a legacy from my father who had built it with his own hands. But Susan, the HOA president, wasn't content with the houses she already controlled. No, she wanted my cabin gone, the forest paved, the creek strangled by concrete. And she came at me with the kind of fury only a Karen in power can summon. It started simple, almost laughable. She marched up with her crew one morning, neon vests glowing in the trees, shouting that my cabin was illegal construction. She waved papers like they were gospel, scribbled with codes and seals I'd never seen. Neighbors watched from the trail as she turned my porch into a courtroom. My hands shook so hard I nearly spilled coffee all down my shirt. I thought of my father, who used to stand on that same porch scanning the tree line for smoke with a calm that I'd never mastered. He wouldn't have flinched. So I set the cup down, went inside, and came back with his old shotgun. I didn't raise. It didn't threaten, just rested it across the rail. That single gesture turned the whole scene. Their shouting faltered, their eyes darted, their boots shuffled. And then they ran. Susan stayed long enough to hiss her warning, then followed. Gravel sprayed from their tires as they tore away. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. They left something behind, though. A folder, thick, dirt-stained, stamped with the name Carter Development. Inside, page after page of blueprints, roads slashed through the trees, villas stamped over wildflower fields, pools carved into the hillsides. And right in the middle, my cabin marked with a bright red X, already written out of existence. My stomach dropped. They weren't improvising. They had a master plan. Susan wasn't just an angry neighbor, she was a developer hiding behind HOA rules. The next morning, the battle escalated. A green truck rolled up, painted with fake Ranger insignia. 2 men stepped out, uniforms, crisp voices, sharp waving papers that accused me of endangering the whole valley. They said my chimney was a fire hazard, that my roof could collapse, that the law demanded I leave immediately. Neighbors gathered again, whispering suspicion flickering across their faces. And for a second, even I doubted myself. Their badges gleamed. Their words carried weight until I looked closer. The seal was crooked, the ink too black, too fresh. I asked them a simple question about fire safety code. They froze. Couldn't answer. The neighbors noticed. Murmurs rippled. Their lie unraveled right there in the fog, and they drove off in shame. But Susan's poison spread anyway. Flyers appeared around town painting me as a menace. Letters filled my mailbox full of sterile threats. Community integrity. Failure to comply. My trash wasn't picked up, my water bill doubled overnight, my power flickered while every other house stayed lit. Neighbors who once waved crossed the street. The silence was worse than shouting. It was exile. I'll admit it, there was a night when I broke. I sat at my desk with a stack of fake notices and fines, the glow of my laptop burning my eyes. My hands shook too badly to write straight. I stared at the deed to my land, tracing the lines with my finger, searching for some hidden clause, some mistake that meant maybe Susan was right. Maybe I was the fool, holding on to something that didn't matter anymore. For the first time, I thought about walking away, letting it all burn. That's when I found my father's journals. Buried in an old trunk, pages smelling of pine and dust. His handwriting steady, his words sharp. He'd logged every fire, every smoke sighting, every call he'd made to the Rangers, and tucked inside dispatch records official SEAL's signatures. Proof that this cabin had been a registered fire watch post. Not just a home, a lifeline for the forest. My throat closed. He hadn't been exaggerating when he said, "If this post falls, the forest burns." With that proof in hand, my despair turned to steel. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't trespassing. This cabin mattered, but Susan wasn't done. A fire broke out one evening, smoke curling black across the ridge. Panic tore through the town. People pointed fingers at me, said I lit the blaze to scare them into siding with me. My blood went cold. The flames licked through the underbrush, heat pressing against my skin. Neighbors froze, unsure whether to help me or hate me. Then an old man stepped forward, scarred hands trembling. He said he'd built this cabin with my father, hammered the beams, hauled the stone. His voice steadied the crowd, and I unfurled my father's maps showing the underground water veins that kept the forest alive. I shouted until my voice cracked. If the cabin fell, the whole watershed failed, and the fire would spread unchecked. That truth broke through their fear. Buckets appeared, shovels scraped, a line formed. We fought together, hacking trenches, passing water, choking the blaze until it hissed and shrank. My arms ached. My lungs burned, but I kept shouting, kept digging, because for the first time they weren't just watching me, they were fighting beside me. When the smoke cleared, respect replaced suspicion in their eyes. But Susan wasn't there. Not a drop of sweat on her hands, not a blister on her palm. I felt her absence like a curse. That fire had been no accident. She wanted it, maybe even lit it. And though the forest still stood, it was scarred, and so was I. The final blow came at the town meeting. Susan painted her vision parks, pools, prosperity. She called my cabin a shack, an obstacle, a stain. For a moment, people clapped. My chest hollowed. Then I laid down my father's journals, the dispatch logs, the official seals. Proof undeniable. Emily, an elder neighbor, stood and said she remembered those nights hearing the radios crackle as my father warned of fire. Claire backed her up. The crowd wavered. Susan's smile faltered. Then came the envelope. Claire slammed it on the table, her hand shaking. Inside, bank statements, letters, bribes traced straight to Carter Development. Susan's name signed across every deal. The gasps in that hall were louder than any gunshot. She lunged, shrieking that I forged it all, that I was dangerous, a criminal with a shotgun. Her voice cracked into hysteria. And then Bob, her own right-hand man, stepped forward. Pale, sweating, he confessed. Said she ordered him to forge papers to spread lies to frame me for the fire. His words fell like stones into water, rippling through the crowd until their anger roared. Susan's empire crumbled in front of me. She clawed at the papers, tried to scream me down, but the voices of my neighbors drowned her out. Shouts of "Step down" rattled the hall. Every lie she'd told collapsed under the weight of truth. She staggered, her face twisted with rage, but there was nowhere left to run. For years, she'd ruled with fear and paperwork. That night, fear turned against her. I didn't need the shotgun this time. Her downfall came from the voices of the very people she thought she controlled. And that's where my story ends. Not in celebration, not with champagne or laughter, but in the moment. Her power finally broke. The crowd shouting her into silence, and me standing there chest heaving, knowing my father's cabin would stand another day. The lesson: sometimes the loudest weapon isn't fear or firepower, it's the truth spoken loud enough that no lie can survive it.